"Come with me. You should see this yourself." That's what the old security guard said. His voice was low and uneasy, like he didn't want to be the one saying it but had no choice. I had just paid for our stuff. My wife had stepped aside to take a call. Nothing unusual about that, at least not until now. I followed him, my chest suddenly feeling heavy for a reason I couldn't explain. We turned the corner near the dressing rooms. He pointed at a live camera feed playing on a back monitor. And that's when I saw her. My wife, the woman I had spent 17 years with, the mother of my 2 kids leaning against the wall, smiling into her phone, flirting with someone else. Her voice slipped through the thin wall. I told him I was talking to the school. He's so easy. I didn't react. Not a single word came out. "Hi, my name is Nolan Chase, and I used to believe that loyalty meant never looking into the dark corners. That trust meant calm." But standing there, watching her play with her hair while she whispered, "Just one more night and then I'll tell him," I understood something. I had been living in a life built on things I chose not to see. The guard looked at me like this wasn't new to him, like he had watched scenes like this before. "I figured you'd want to know," he said. I nodded. My hands were steady. No shaking. I walked back outside, put the shopping bags in the car, and when she came back, smiling like everything was normal, I kissed her forehead. Because she had no clue. I had already started counting. She got into the passenger seat, still glowing from whatever story she had just told. "Sorry," she said lightly. "School stuff." I gave a small smile. "No problem. Everything okay?" She nodded, leaned closer, kissed my cheek, and there wasn't even a trace of guilt in her voice. But inside me, something had changed. I didn't explode. I didn't question her. I watched. That night, I lay next to her in bed, eyes open, listening to her breathing, memorizing it. The way she held her phone under the pillow like it was something valuable she had to guard. I had questions. Hundreds, maybe thousands. But I also had control. And control is what makes a man truly dangerous. Hi again, Nolan Chase. Before I moved into construction management, I spent 7 years as a military analyst. You learn to notice things other people miss. Small details. Patterns that don't fit. Changes in behavior. And suddenly, my wife had all of them. The new gym bag she never unpacked. The random volunteer nights that came out of nowhere. The perfume that didn't match the one she used for years. The phone that used to stay unlocked but now never left her hand. Still, I said nothing. Instead, I started building something quietly. A record. I tracked everything. Every outing, every excuse, every shift in her tone. Then I reached out to an old friend, a digital forensic expert I had once helped during a custody case. Within 2 days, I had access to everything. Deleted messages, cloud backups, voice recordings. The voice I heard wasn't just hers. It was his too. And then came the next file. A photo with a timestamp just 12 minutes after I paid for our groceries that day. She was still in the store. But she wasn't alone. That photo stopped me. It wasn't the angle. It wasn't even what they were doing. There was just a small space between them, his hand almost touching hers near the dressing room hallway. What hit me was her face, relaxed, bright, alive. That soft half-smile she used to give me years ago, before kids, before bills, before life became heavy and routine. Now it belonged to someone else. I stared at that picture longer than I should have. Nolan Chase again. A man learning in real time what betrayal really feels like. Not like in movies, no shouting, no dramatic scenes, just a cold, quiet feeling that sits behind your ribs and refuses to go away. I didn't confront her. I improved my plan. First step, I hired a family lawyer. Quiet, sharp, and experienced in early investigations. We opened a file and started building a full timeline. After that, I met with our financial advisor and asked a simple question. If someone is secretly moving shared money, how soon can we trace it? He said, that depends on how smart she thinks she is. Turns out, not very smart. She had been moving small amounts from our joint account, sending them to a private debit card under a fake LLC name. The name of that LLC matched his initials. I stayed calm. I signed the paperwork, froze the joint accounts, and secured the house legally using a clause we had signed years ago when my father co-signed the loan. She couldn't sell it. She couldn't use it. She didn't know any of this yet. But I had already removed the safety she thought she had taken. And in 3 days, she would walk into a meeting that would change everything. Because I invited both of them. I booked a quiet conference room in a downtown co-working office. Clean, professional, easy to forget. 2 chairs in front of mine, 1 notepad, 1 envelope. She thought we were meeting an investor for my business. He thought he was coming to discuss expansion plans. Neither of them knew they were meeting me. They arrived together, not holding hands, but close enough that the truth was no longer hidden. He wore a blazer. She wore the same perfume I had gifted her on our anniversary last year. I stood up as they walked in. Her face lost all color instantly. He froze, like someone caught off guard for the first time. "Sit," I said. They sat, Nolan Chase again. And no, I didn't shout. I didn't slam anything on the table like in some dramatic scene. I simply pushed the envelope toward them. Inside it was everything: bank records, messages, photos, the LLC registration with his initials, her digital trail on every transfer. She didn't open it. "I can explain," she said quietly. "I'm not here for an explanation," I replied. "I'm here to finish this story, the one you both started behind my back." He leaned forward, trying to stay calm. "You don't have the right to trap us like this." I gave a small laugh, not loud, just once. "You trapped a marriage. I'm just returning it, legally." Then I stood up. The bank account was being looked into for fraud. "And you," I said while staring at him, "should probably contact a lawyer before the IRS reaches out to you." She was trembling now, not from fear, but from the moment she finally understood I wasn't bluffing. But what neither of them realized was that someone else had been quietly watching everything unfold, and she had already booked a flight. That someone was my sister, Rachel, a divorce attorney, a single mother, and someone with zero tolerance for betrayal, especially when it involved me. The second I sent her the files, she booked her flight. No questions, no lectures, just one message: "Don't let her twist the story. I'll be there Thursday." And she was. "Hi, Nolan. Chase here again. Watching my world slowly fall apart and learning how to stand in the middle of it without breaking." By the time Rachel arrived, the first wave had already landed. My wife tried to take back control, messaging mutual friends, feeding them some soft version of the truth about emotional distance and misunderstandings. No cheating, no fraud, just unhappiness. But I had already shared the truth before she could. Facts, records, proof. One friend called me and said, "Nolan, if this is true, she just destroyed her own life." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. Rachel and I met my lawyer Friday morning. She brought extra paperwork, documents that sped things up, emergency filings, clauses to protect assets, and early custody plans in case she tried to involve the kids. Then she looked at me across the table and asked, "Are you doing this for revenge or for peace?" That question stayed with me. This wasn't only about exposing them, it was about who I would become after all this. I answered, "Peace." She nodded slowly. "Then let's finish this the right way." That evening, my wife came to the house, the one she no longer had access to, and saw the locks changed, the security code updated, and a formal notice taped to the door. She stood on the porch for 10 minutes. She didn't knock. She just cried into her hands. But the cameras recorded everything, and that footage would matter more than she ever expected, because by Monday morning, her employer would receive it. Her employer was a private healthcare group, and their ethics policy was very clear. Any employee involved in financial misconduct, violations of trust, or damage to reputation could face investigation and suspension. She didn't just cheat. She used the company travel card to pay for 2 of their weekend trips, listing them as a training conference that never happened. And I had every receipt. I'm Nolan Chase. And if you think this was revenge, then you're missing the point. This was accountability. Nothing more, nothing less. When she was called into HR, she tried to explain it away. She said I was getting back at her. She said it was personal drama spilling into her work life. But policies don't care about emotions. They care about proof. She was put on immediate leave while the investigation started. Her voice message to me that night was 6 minutes long. It started with blame, then turned into begging, then silence, and finally anger. You don't get to ruin me just because you're hurt. I didn't answer. I was sitting with my kids, watching a movie, something we hadn't done peacefully in months without her mood affecting everything. They were laughing, eating popcorn, calm and happy. And that's when I knew this was the life I would protect, not the one I lost. The next day, I met my lawyer and Rachel one more time. Everything was already moving forward. Division of assets, custody plans, legal filings, protection orders. But then Rachel pulled out one last file and slid it across the table. "Are you ready to see what he's been hiding?" she asked. I blinked, confused. I thought we had everything. She shook her head. Not this. What I saw in those pages changed everything. Because it turned out he didn't just betray me. He crossed the wrong family entirely. The file Rachel gave me had records from 3 different states, public databases, court filings, and something that sent a cold feeling down my spine. A restraining order filed 4 years earlier by another woman, under her maiden name, against him. Same man, different place, same behavior. It accused him of control, financial manipulation, and emotional abuse. The case never became public news. It was settled privately and buried. But it was real, and Rachel had found it. I'm Nolan Chase. And in that moment, I stopped being the man who only wanted peace, because now it wasn't just about me anymore. This man had a pattern. I made one call to her employer's HR department. I didn't share everything, just the public record and the court link. Then I sat back and watched the last piece fall apart. Her suspension became permanent within 48 hours, not just because of the false expense claims, but because she brought someone dangerous into a protected environment. She called me that night from a prepaid number. "Please, you've done enough." I answered calmly, "No, I haven't done anything. I just stopped protecting you." Then I ended the call. The next morning, the man finally reached out himself. No threats, just one short message. "Let's meet." I showed it to Rachel. She said, "He's trying to test you. Don't give him anything." So I didn't reply. Instead, I contacted a former client, someone who worked in private security and risk management. He owed me a favor. Within hours, the man who thought he was only involved with a married woman was served with a legal complaint and a cease and desist connected to financial issues and past behavior. His silence after that said more than any apology could. But there was still one final moment left. My wife had asked to see me in person. She arrived 10 minutes early. No makeup, no rings, just the same woman I had married 17 years ago, only now without the mask she had been wearing for the last 2. We sat across from each other in the same cafe where we once picked our kids' names over coffee and pancakes. She looked tired. "I know I don't deserve kindness," she said softly. I didn't respond. "I didn't think you would find out," she continued. "Not because you're not smart, but because you trusted me too much." I nodded once. "Hi, Nolan." Chase again. Sitting across from someone who felt like a stranger, realizing that the real betrayal wasn't just the affair, the lies, or even the money. It was how easily she risked everything we built for someone who didn't even stand by her when things fell apart. She reached into her purse and slid something toward me. A photograph. Our wedding day. You can tear it, burn it, whatever you want. I just didn't want to be the only one holding onto it anymore. I looked at the picture. Two young people smiling at forever, not knowing how fragile that word really is. Then I folded it and placed it in my jacket. I'm not here to punish you, I said quietly, but I'm also not here to rescue you. She pressed her lips together. Tears finally started to fall. Will you ever forgive me? I stood up. I already did. That's how I moved on. She didn't follow me. She stayed there, crying over the life she never thought she would lose. I walked to my car, started the engine, and drove home to my kids. Home to honesty, not revenge, just clarity. Because the difference between a storm and a new beginning is what you decide to build after it ends. And I had already begun. I've already filed for separation. The house is secured.